Leidelic, Vycairn, and Coritung have made their way through the haunted passageways of the Halls of Shadow. They have suffered minor wounds and been shaken by dark terrors, but their resolve persists. They pass from one gloom-shrouded corridor to another, and from hall to hall, in this ancient Hyrosian ziggurat. For a time, the only sounds are the echoes of their own footsteps, or perhaps a ghostly whisper that emanates from some unseen corner. Vycairn the Berserker holds a crackling torch. Coritung, the Masked One, murmurs to the shadows, and Leidelic the Shaman remains in the lead, guiding his party along. The three men are starting to feel that they are walking in circles. They try a side chamber that they believe they have not yet entered. When they step in front of a large statue, a trap triggers. The statue appears as a scaled worm, complete with horns and spines, and a gaping maw full of sharp teeth. From the statue's mouth erupts a terrible gout of scorching fire. The druid and the barbarian are able to evade the worst of the flames, but the sentinel is caught off guard. The men leap out of the way as best they can, singed and momentarily sapped by the intense heat. Coritung chants quietly to himself and lays his hands over his reddened skin. Leidelic also uses a shamanic chant of healing. The three Archai men look to one another. They are starting to wear down, and they are feeling lost within the shadowed ruin. Leidelic says,
"I will not give up. This place terrifies me, but I cannot return to my people, having failed yet again. I would rather die."
The warrior Vycairn gives a grim smile.
"There is no greater death than in battle, with fire running through your blood. I will not stay here brooding and lamenting. If death awaits us, so be it. Let us greet him with fury."
Coritung takes a sip from his gourd of Momoate.
"I do not fear death. I am with you, shaman."
Having recouped as best they could, the party presses on. They pass by walls of dark basalt and friezes depicting ancient scenes of war and the worship of strange Hyrosian gods. Leidelic continues to navigate the way. At the end of a corridor, the group finds a great stairway. The steps stretch so wide as to fade into the darkness beyond the reach of Vycairn's torch. The top of the stairs ends with a platform bearing a set of massive double doors. The raiders hear nothing on the other side of the heavy stone doors. They see a stone head, gargoyle-like, at the side of the doorway, but they notice no indication of wards. When the men go to push open the doors, they do not budge.
"I see no keyhole,"
observes Leidelic. Vycairn stares into the open mouth of the stone head, angling his torchlight.
"The throat of this thing runs deep."
Coritung has the low-light vision of a marked Atarangai who has walked in the shadow. He looks into the open maw of the grotesque creature. Indeed, he sees that a tube-like gullet runs from the thing's mouth down and into the wall. The two mystics puzzle over the Hyrosian barricade, unsure of its exact function. Vycairn frowns.
I have faced Hyrosian wards before. I hate them!
He sets his weight against the great door and pushes. There is not the slightest indication of movement. He backs up, and Laedelic joins in aid. The pair take a dashing start and slam against the stone barrier. The berserker smashes against the door. It does not budge. He grunts in pain and curses. Laedelic looks over the stone slabs and the mocking face of the fiend.
This door is protected by a mystical seal. You will only injure yourself trying to break it down.
Coratung touches the carven mask he wears and gazes about. He senses that the chamber holding his ancestral weapon is far, far back.
We must pass through, but my fate lies back that way.
He looks to the head of his glaive, fashioned from shards of obsidian. While it is sharp as a razor, he does not like the idea of striking it against a door of solid stone. A magically bolstered stone door at that. He looks to Vycairn.
Give me your torch, warrior of the cave. I'll give you back. Don't forget that I aided you in this. I shall not forget.
Using the torchlight, Coratung searches for any small critters that dwell nearby. He spots a millipede in a crevice of wall slabs, and a rat creeping close behind. Coratung whispers to the spirits of the land and those of his ancestors.
Little brother, I must know about this stony head.
He points toward the gargoyle visage beside the doorway.
Help me, please. I have a food.
The rat looks up at the masked sentinel. It gives a couple high-pitched squeaks, asking for the food. Coratung gives a bit of yam and dried fish to the rodent, who happily gobbles them up. The rat says that he has crawled down the stone throat and back up the other side. It runs between the stone heads on either side of the wall. Sometimes a man comes and feeds a special stone to the head, and the way opens.
I want you to go to the other side and look for this special stone. Don't let anyone see you, and come back and tell me what you're found.
The rat scurries over to the fiendish face and down the thing's gullet. A moment later, the rodent returns and indicates that the special stone is resting on the tongue of the stone head on the other side.
Push the stone down the throat and bring it back to me. More food,
squeaks the rat. The Archai obliges. The little vermin again scampers down the thing's throat. A few seconds later, the heavy stone doors begin to swing open, and the rat comes pushing a polished orb up the gargoyle's gullet and onto its forked tongue. The chamber ahead is lit by braziers that cast severe shadows. The sound of chanting, whispered and rasped, now reaches the ears of the three Archai. Coratung takes possession of the orb, and the party moves swiftly ahead. They find themselves in a great hall, with expansive reaches of both interior space and high ceilings. Huge pillars, carven with Hyrosian iconography, support the weight of the room. There are a couple side doors, half concealed within the gloom that lines the area. At the center of the chamber is a wide dais, atop of which is an altar. It has a standing construction, as was common for the Hyrosian temples of old. The one who was chanting is an Archive man, with dark moku tattoos, and piercings made of bone all throughout his face and ears. He is a Makutu, a dark sorcerer witch of the Archive, and an experienced-looking one at that. On the other side of the standing altar is another Makutu, with less tattoos. Bound to the altar is an Archive boy who hangs limp. Also nearby is a figure made of pure shadow. Ledelic perceives that the boy affixed to the altar is Waitukotai, the son of the ghost woman they encountered a short time ago. He gasps as he watches the Makutu complete the dark ritual and draw the shadow from the boy.
Behold your new master! I, and I alone, shall you serve, Shadow!
The sorcerer's voice rasps. He then turns to face the intruders nearing the base of the dais.
The new slaves have arrived.
Ledelic holds aloft his serpent staff, and with his other hand gives his chest a powerful slap.
Atongopoa, who was born in smoke! I am Ledelic Duval, life from death of the Whitewater tribe. You have stolen my son's shadow, and that of this young one here. Corrupt you are, and your end is now!
Come then, strike me down, and I shall rise again as a shadow spirit in command of all the ancient might of the halls of shadow.
You are a deceiver and a servant of evil.
At this, the shadow boy seems to weep. Ledelic looks to him.
Boy, I know who you are. You are named Watukotai, vine growing too high. I have met your mother, the drowned one. She was killed by this damned Makutu and his men. We aided your mother's spirit to journey on, and she wishes to rejoin you in the spirit realm. Do not serve this corrupt one. He is not your master. He is your enemy!
Atongopoa's face twists in hatred. He points his obsidian dagger towards the three raiders.
Slay them!
Koratung begins up the stairs of the dais. He makes a mystical gesture and chants aloud. A beam of silver moonlight descends from above, striking the man of shadow. The dark spirit fades away into the gleaming moonbeam and is gone forever. The shadow of Watukotai looks sadly at the sorcerer, then reaches out for him. Atongopoa evades, shouting,
No! You are my servant!
Vycairn shouts like the roaring of a jaguar. He flies up the steps of the dais with speeding strides of a berserker and meets his foe with the might of his maquitl. Atangalpoa shrieks in pain. Bloodied from the assault, he nearly topples over. Laedelic sees this opportunity to end the fight early. He dashes up all but the final step, draws his chakram, and throws. The disc ring of sharpened obsidian goes sailing past Atangalpoa. The Dark Sorcerer realizes he is still alive and refuses to die like a coward. He spits an incantation and grasps out for Vycairn. His touch drains some energy from Vycairn, and Atangalpoa seems to reinvigorate somewhat. He then shouts a command to the ceiling. A strange creature flies down from above. It resembles something of a bat and something of a squid, and it has dark-colored flesh. The thing lands near the sorcerer and the berserker, then sheds an aura of inky darkness that engulfs the top of the dais. Kortung's moonbeam is blotted out. The Makutu apprentice pokes out of the black cloud and chants a spell at the druid and the masked one. The two allies both resist the magical slumber. The Makutu then ducks back into the darkness. Kortung whispers to himself,
I have walked through the shadow. I fear no darkness.
He proceeds up the last few steps into the inky cloud.
Ancestors, guide my blade.
He strikes where he last saw Atangalpoa. As his weapon connects, Kortung channels divine power into his attack. There is a brief glimmer of green and silver light within the darkness. Atangalpoa howls in pain, and there comes the sound of his body striking the floor. Vycairn, enraged, strikes at the creature near his feet. The monstrosity squeals at its demise. The aura of darkness dissipates like a nightmare passing. Remaining standing are the three raiders, glaring at the Makutu apprentice. His Moko tattoos are few, though one on his forehead is darkly lined. A bone and talon earring adorns his left earlobe. Apprehension ripples across his expression. The shadow of the boy's spirit gazes with the sad eyes at this witch mage. The man scowls, takes a firm hold of his obsidian dagger, and plunges it into his own heart. Laedelic looks at the floor.
Atangalpoa, who was born in smoke, your end has come.
Atangalpoa lies unconscious, his body covered in gashes. The druid casts his staff down, where it transforms into a giant python. The massive serpent opens its mouth and devours the man. The druid reverts the snake into a staff, and for a time, it will have a bulge in its belly. He then crouches down and looks at the shadow spirit of the boy Wakututai.
Be in peace, young one. All here is done. Pass over. Go to your mother's side and travel with her through the spirit realm.
The boy nods his head. His tears fall to shadows, and he fades away. Vycairn howls in triumph. The next moment, fatigue from his frenzy comes over him. Kortung says,
The enemy has fallen. I must return to claim Waverinder.
Wait, and we shall travel side by side.
Laedelic looks towards the doors at the side of the chamber. The men go to have a look. Behind the first door, they find a smaller chamber that connects to another section of dark corridors. Within this room, an Archai girl of perhaps 13 years sits by a burning lamp. She is talking with someone.
Who are you?
She draws an obsidian dagger. Laedelic presents himself and states his purpose of seeking his son's shadow. No sooner does he finish than the shadow of Hecate draws forward.
My son!
Laedelic is filled with relief.
No! Don't go!
Cries the girl. Hecate's shadow looks back to her.
Who are you, girl?
I am Ikepatu, Jade Fish of the Grandmother Crab Tribe, daughter of Atangalpoa. I heard a fight. Where's my father?
We have slain him, girl. He sought to pervert Kauai, to control the great life force, and make slaves of the natural cycle of spirits.
Slain him?
Ikipatu screams and runs at Laedelic, dagger ready to stab. Laedelic swings his staff and knocks the dagger from the girl's hand. He strikes her with a backhand slap, sending her to the floor, sobbing.
My father!
The druid scoffs at her. He calls to the shadow of Hecate.
My son, come to me. Father is going to bring you home, and you shall be complete once again.
The shadow starts for his father, then hesitates. He gazes down at the weeping girl and touches her shoulder.
Do not waste your time on her. She is a seed from a poisonous tree.
I love him,
yells the girl.
He is free and safe because of me. And yet you killed my father.
Because of you!
Laedelic again scoffs, though this time he wonders what the girl could mean. Kortung speaks to her.
Your father killed many and ruined many lives. You cannot expect that he could live that way for long.
Hecate, come!
Laedelic gestures for his son to join him. The shadow comes and embraces Laedelic's own shadow.
I love him.
Ikipatu reaches for the boy's shadow.
My father could not control him. He fought and escaped and hid. But I made friends with him. I love the stories he tells me of the bravery of his father, the shaman warrior of the Whitewater tribe.
I am he,
states Laedelic.
But how could you speak with a shadow?
I could hear him.
The druid, the berserker, and the sentinel all exchange glances. What to do about this girl before them? Laedelic says,
The girl bears a seed of evil in her. I cannot trust her. And if she returns to her people, it will only provoke more revenge, be it sooner or be it later. Better we give her a swift and honest death now.
Kortung has a different perspective.
The girl can still choose her path and choose something better. I can take her to Blue Island. She will have a spirit quest there and encounter her true self.
Vycairn runs his fingers over his whiskers.
It does not sit well with me, the idea of killing her, especially not in this haunted place. Let us give her to the forest. Let the spirits decide.
The three debate their ideas for a moment. With a grumble, Laedelic concedes.
So be it.
The raiders then look through the other door of the ritual chamber. It is a storage room and vault of sorts. They find an opaque yellow eye suspended in a container made from a semi-transparent bladder. It resembles the eyes of the bat squid monstrosity. There are also 2 large leaves wrapping a black plasm. Kortung identifies the Eye of the Dark Mantle in that it is a component valuable for spirit rituals. He also identifies the Ichor as Shadow Essence, and that it too holds mystical properties. They are able to extract 3 other quality eyes from the dead Dark Mantle. Then they divide the components. Vycairn collects all of the obsidian daggers, though he lets Ikipatu keep her own. Laedelic presses his comrades to head back and leave the ziggurat. Kortung insists on revisiting the chamber where the slab sealed the way to the weapon Waverender that he seeks. The party relocates the vault chamber, and Kortung places the orb in the open mouth of the gargoyle-like statue at the side of the etched slab. The stone moves aside, revealing the vault beyond. The Archai behold a fearsome statue of a Hyrosian god with a head like that of a deep ocean fish. Resting in the hands of the god is Waverender, a glaive of masterful quality, an ancestral weapon of Kortung's family. Upon sighting this, he is filled with great spiritual fury. He leaps ahead, shouting, and brings down his glaive, striking the head of the god. There is a peal of thunder, and the ancient statue's face cracks in half from the blow. The obsidian head of the glaive also fragments terribly, but Kortung pays it no mind, for a far greater weapon is now in his grasp. He holds Waverender aloft, basking in the glory of the moment.
For many years I have dreamt of this moment.
He admires the heirloom polearm for a long moment. Vycairn and Laedelic acknowledge and honor his triumph. Then the berserker picks a couple choice obsidian shards from the discarded glaive.